Sell cleaning products, chemicals, cleaning equipment, or service, they've got you covered. Please reach out and start saving money today. Stop by their store open to the public and save. Kim Source Direct, 1207 South Park Drive in Kernersville. Give them a call at 336-515-9990. Order from the website at kimsourcedirect.com. You are locked into Tobacco Road Sports Radio's TGIF lineup.
Because it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
I ain't set this up. I ain't know nothing about this. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Damn it. Hey.
You're welcome. TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Blue Naples Pizzeria in Kernersville is now hiring. Come work for one of the best Italian restaurants in the Triad. Currently hiring dishwashers, cooks, front cashiers, and more. Great hours, great pay. Give them a call at 336-993-7707 or stop by and inquire at 1519 Union Cross Road in Kernersville. Start working this week. Blue Naples Pizza.
Charlotte out of timeout. Here's Morning, the shot. Game over.
He's going to get off. Here he comes. Here he comes. He's got him this time. It's going to be a drag race. Wow. They touch. Kramer got him.
By Lundquist. Now Ponikarovsky with it. 2-1 in front. Block there. Scramble for it there. They poke away at it. Still it's loose. Poke that like Hamilton. They score. And Green. It's over.
The runner at third, nobody out in the first and didn't score. Second and third, one out in the second and didn't score. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game.
Welcome to The Score. Here's your host, Brett Wiseman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a rainy, what was expected to be a snowy, it might be on Steve's end of the state, snowy, but actually rainy Friday afternoon here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. However you are enjoying the show this afternoon, we thank you greatly and are pleased that we're not having to deal with any more winter weather. Guys, how we doing?
Doing great, Brett. Thanks for having me on, and happy it's Friday. I don't have to be at work because the university shut down, so all good over here.
There you go. Steve,
yeah,
you guys were supposed to get more than we did, I think.
It's coming. It's just getting ready to start about 4 o'clock or so, I think. So
I saw.
We had a little dusting overnight, but it's supposed to get about 3 inches over here.
Okay, yeah. Well, our chances are slim. I was driving into work last night and anticipating my doom, and then nothing fell from the sky. So I saw Justin Williams tweeted out his kids were having a school day, the former Hurricane, and he said usually these have more snow involved with them. He's a hockey player, so he's used to these things. Super wild card weekend in the NFL. And you excuse me for being a bit nasal. Colds do still exist, by the way. Non-COVID illnesses, as they're called in the media lingo.
Just ask Coach K. He knows all about that.
Yes, he had a non-COVID illness, yes.
Anyway.
We'll get to Duke. We'll get to Duke. I know that's what you're paid for. We'll get there. I don't want to definitively say this because we're only 2 years into this format, but I now sort of have a problem with this seventh playoff team because when you look at what happened to the Eagles and what happened to the Steelers, they didn't belong in those games. They didn't stay in them long, and they didn't belong in them. Now, I get the idea was to give the first round bye to one team to make it even more meaningful, but by adding another team, this is where Major League Baseball needs to take notes. And this is where the MLBPA is like, okay, look at this. This is why we don't expand, right? Because then you get teams that get thrown in there that have no business being in there that get shellacked.
And yet the the ratings were pretty high still, weren't they?
Right.
I guess that's it. That's what
And
the NFL always comes back and say.
that's the biggest idea. That's the biggest idea. Yeah. 49ers Cowboys, granted it was on Nickelodeon, so there were some extra numbers, non-streaming numbers, of course. I watched the Nickelodeon broadcast all the way because why not? I think 45.3 was the final return, and that was not counting the Nickelodeon numbers. That was just on CBS for 49ers Cowboys. So we're probably looking at 100 to 125, I would guess. Probably another 50 or 60 million that watched that on Nickelodeon. Kids with their families, da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, ratings is the biggest reason why this was a thing and why the 17th game was added as well. As for Saturday, let's start there. Joe Burrow, in his playoff debut, guys, absolutely showed out. I mean, oh, goodness. I want to like that second touchdown pass that he threw because it was an amazing throw, and it should have counted regardless. But the whistle went, and, it technically should not have counted. But that doesn't take anything away from how he played, how the Bengals played. For a team that hadn't won a playoff game in 31 years, and a team that's relatively young without a whole lot of playoff experience, they did not look the part in any way, shape, or form in that aspect.
I 100% agree, Brett. I think the Bengals, I don't think they're there yet. They're definitely, they're figuring things out. It's good to see Zach Taylor and this team, meshing really well. Joe Burrow coming into his second year. Incredible start to the season. I think it's the last 6 games he hasn't thrown an interception, so that's important for Joe Burrow. He needs to pretty much play perfect if he wants to keep these Bengals alive in the playoffs.
Sorry, guys, forgot to unmute there the entire time. Apparently that happens when you get a spam risk phone call in the middle of a show. And then your producer calling you, telling you you're muted. Anyways, where was I? By the way, Des, I didn't mute it on my own. My laptop did because, I don't know, somebody wants to get to me about my car's extended warranty, which is far extended, by the way. Anyways, Cincinnati's offensive line held up fine. 1, against a very vaunted Las Vegas pass rush. 2, you look at how young that roster is, how well they played in a playoff environment for all the memes and everything for not having won a playoff game in 31 years. And then you listen to Joe Burrow after the game saying, we expected to win this game, and we expect not to be done. For your second-year quarterback to come out and say that, I mean, look, Joe Burrow has some charisma. He's got some moxie to him, right? And we love that about him. But there's also this rare maturity to him. It doesn't come off that way to a lot of people, but he's mature beyond his years into how he handles himself on the field in a lot of those situations down the stretch there. He said he wished they would have scored more points. So there's that charisma, there's that swagger, but also there's that maturity to know, hey, we could have done a better job of finishing him off, and we wouldn't have needed to get that last stop.
I think that maturity comes a lot from, he was pretty old when he came into the NFL. He wasn't 21 years old. He was 23, 24 years old. So, I think he gained a little bit of that maturity from being in college football for so long. And, that it's carried over so well for him in the NFL. And like you said, Brett, to hear that from your second-year quarterback, the confidence in that room, in that locker room, you can feel that energy in that post-game conference when he came out in those pretty swag sunglasses. But, the Bengals, they are trending up in stock right now for sure.
Trending up indeed. When we go to the other game there on that Saturday, we got to move this along a little bit. It's been kind of a broken beginning of this show, no doubt about it. But that's the beauty of live radio and I guess you could say television streaming. I don't know. Bills, Patriots. We thought it would be close. We thought it would be relatively low scoring. Not such. The Bills learned a lot from what they did wrong, especially against that Patriots defense. I haven't seen that Patriots defense look so decimated all year. I haven't seen a Bill Belichick team, especially one that's had 3 opportunities against a team, this being the third. You'd think that'd be the most prepared the Patriots would be, but it turned out they looked to be the least prepared. I mean, talk about scoring 7 touchdowns on 7 drives. Unheard of against the number 1 scoring defense in the National Football League. Those things don't happen every night. And for Sean McDermott to roll out the game plan that he did, to mix things up as well as he did, using Devin Singletary in the passing game a lot more than I think Bill Belichick and that defense were expecting to see. It's a scary Bills team. And if I'm Kansas City, I'm a little bit wary given what happened last year because there's the revenge factor and all that. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later on. As we talked about, the Buccaneers had no problems with the Eagles. We didn't really expect anything different. We didn't expect anything different from the Steelers-Chiefs game either. Not how we all wanted to see Big Ben go out, but I think it's how we all expected Big Ben to go out. Let's get this Cowboys-Niners game because that's the real one that's involves a lot of discussion because it's really the only game that wasn't, other than Bengals-Raiders, a complete blowout. It was trending that direction, and then Dak Prescott and the Cowboys got back into it. Deebo Samuel, again, his versatility on display. Kyle Shanahan's super creative play calling. Nick Bosa going down in the first quarter didn't seem to hinder that San Francisco defense until later on in the game. It started to rear its head a little bit. But I want to say this, and I've heard a lot of people with varying degrees of opinions on this. The reason that the Cowboys couldn't get the ball snapped on that last play, was not because the ref didn't get out of the way or anything like that. There's a reason Michael Davis is not on the show today because he's still in mourning and he knows that I'm going to say what I'm about to say about the Dallas Cowboys and the culture of that organization. It is so typical of the culture of the Dallas Cowboys, even as far back as the 70s, 80s, and 90s, to blame anyone and everyone but themselves. It was a miracle that they came back in that game. For them to be in that game was a godsend. The 49ers gave them a few opportunities. The Cowboys tried to hand that game away with some really stupid penalties for most of that third quarter. For 3.5 quarters, really, the Cowboys were an anomaly. They were an afterthought. There was no game. They came back. They made it a game. They took advantage of a couple mistakes, but they made way too many mistakes throughout the course of the game. And then, as I would know, Mike McCarthy's play calling and clock management in 2-minute drills, generally not good. It happened again. The reason they couldn't get the ball snapped was because, let's see, I'm Mike McCarthy. 14 seconds left. I've used all my timeouts. I'm going to call, a quarterback draw. Really? Really? If I was Dak Prescott, I would have just chucked the ball into the fourth row and said, all right, run it again. Why? And after the game, his reasoning was even dumber. He was like, I thought we'd get the ball snapped. What? He ran up the middle, slid in the middle of the hash with 4 seconds left. If Usain Bolt was the quarterback, he couldn't have gotten the ball reset in time. And yet his job is safe.
Besides that, in general, but not even that game, all season, they have gone away from their best strength, running the football. And
Thank you.
Ezekiel Elliott, they came out and said that he was playing with some sort of injury all season. You have Tony Pollard, who showed you multiple times that he's capable of getting the ball 20, 25 times a game, and you just stray away from that. I know you guys have really good wide receivers, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson,
Who says you
Gallup.
can't use CeeDee Lamb as like a Deebo Samuel kind of guy? Says you can't hand it to him on some jet sweeps or something. I mean, get creative. There's a reason Kellen Moore's get looked at for head coaching jobs. He should be getting looked at for taking over for Mike McCarthy, because it's very clear that he's just as incompetent as he was his last 3 years in Green Bay.
And then with Mike McCarthy coming out and saying that during the pregame prayer that they were somewhat nervous, that to me falls on the coach.
That's your fault, number one. And number two, for you to come out and say that is an admission of guilt and an admission that you're not doing your job correctly. His problem was his last couple years in Green Bay, he compounded on the multitude of the mistakes and the errors of his ways. He just kept piling on top. And he's done that the last 4 or 5 weeks of this season, starting with the loss to Arizona. He just kind of piles on top with mistakes. He doesn't know what to say after games. Coaching for as long as he did. He's got a street named after him in Green Bay only because he won a Super Bowl. After that, what happened? And Greg, look, he had some good years. But what he's done in Dallas, especially the back half of this year in that playoff game, and when you say, yeah, our team was nervous, that's an admission of guilt. That's an admission of incompetence at your job. All right, let's get in the break here. We'll preview the divisional round this weekend, including those same San Francisco 49ers going to a frigid Lambeau on Saturday night. That's probably the marquee matchup. We'll get into it all next here on The Score.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. York Home Inspections provides a vast array of home inspection services right here in the heart of the Triad. Exterior, insulation, ventilation, structural, appliances, roofing, radon testing, pest inspections, electrical, plus HVAC, new construction inspections, annual maintenance, and more. Owner John Taylor York has been in business since 2012 and treats each inspection as if it's his own home. Schedule your appointment online with John at YorkHomeInspection94.com or call 336-442-8315. York Home Inspections. Quality home inspections.
This is Donald Ware, host of Box to Row. I'm giving you my NFL predictions and some NBA talk, plus a conversation with Buck Buchanan Award winner, Florida A&M linebacker Isaiah Land, right here on Box to Row.
From press box to press row with Donald Ware, Saturdays at 9 a.m. on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Craving fried chicken? Stop by One Stop on the way to the big game. One Stop number 6, located at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville, serves fresh fried chicken and famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Craving wings? Come try the new spicy breaded wings. Get a 5-wing meal with 6 taters and a roll for just $7.39. Now in regular, hot, ranch, or spicy. One Stop number 6, 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville.
Beamer Tire and Auto Repair, now with 3 locations across the Triad in High Point, Greensboro, and our new location in Kernersville. Beamer Tire and Auto offers full-service auto repair, all tire brands, free alignment checks, oil changes, and more. In Kernersville, check out the no appointment needed Quick Lube shop. Check out their thousands of 5-star ratings via Google and Yelp. They care because they know that you can go anywhere. So try a shop with a beating heart, not a bottom line. Beamer Tire and Auto Repair. Visit us on Facebook or at BeamerTire.com.
Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman alongside Alex Wober, Steve Wiseman, our producer, Desmond Johnson, this afternoon. And Steve, no, you should not mention that you were on the field when Terrell Owens caught the catch 2 to beat Mike Holmgren's Green Bay Packers in Mike Holmgren's final game. And not just for my sake. I think my dad still has PTSD. Your brother still has PTSD from this.
That was a bad one. That wasn't as bad
That
as
was
that
a bad
Seahawks loss a few years later. But
yeah, Alex decided to tag me in that the other day because he's a Seahawks fan. Actually, 4 or 5 people decided to send that to me. I remember exactly where I was, and I remember exactly what I said, which is not radio friendly. Let's just say that Brandon Bostic now has a nickname called No Stick Bostic because he forgot to, whatever the sticky thing is they put on their gloves. I guess that malfunctioned that day. I don't know. But you bring that up about the 49ers. Green Bay has only defeated San Francisco in the playoffs 4 times since 1995. They are 4-9 in playoff matchups since 1995. The 4 wins, the 95 divisional round, the year after the 49ers won the Super Bowl, Favre's first MVP year, 96 divisional round, the Mud Bowl at Lambeau. Also the last year Green Bay won a playoff game as a 1 seed was when they beat the 49ers and then the Panthers in those in the divisional round, the NFC Championship game, and then beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl. Beat them in the 97 NFC Championship game at Candlestick, and then 98 happened. The last win for Green Bay at all against San Francisco in the playoffs was the 2001 wild card game. Since then, 0-8.
it's a great rivalry, playoff, right? 13 times. That's a lot of playoff games, right? I was at the championship game when Green Bay beat them, and it was in the rain too. It was an awful day at Candlestick, but
I don't know if I'm sad that you had to live in San Francisco or just sad that you had to go to Candlestick that often.
I didn't live in San Francisco. I was working in Mississippi. I was covering Favre.
That's right.
Back in the day.
That's right.
So I was on the Saints beat. Anyway, not to get too far down the road, but yeah, I was at both those playoff games because I was covering the Packers at the time.
Candlestick was just, you kids don't know. And I was on the tail end of that existence of baseball being there. Baseball there was worse to watch than football because I'm not going to get into it. Look up the pictures. If you thought looking at the LA Coliseum for baseball was bad, look at Candlestick. There's a gaping hole. Literally, there's a hole in the left field fence. Anyways, yeah, it's a great rivalry. We had the 49ers Cowboys thing last week. We had that rivalry was renewed. But San Francisco has been a thorn, not only in Green Bay's side over the years, but has been a thorn in the side of Aaron Rodgers specifically. And it should be noted that Aaron Rodgers has never defeated the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs in his career. He's 0-4. So that 2019 NFC Championship game, I think, sticks out the most. Not only because Green Bay wasn't necessarily expected to be there, they probably shouldn't have been there. But now, from Green Bay's perspective, and I know I'm biased, but this is the second year in a row you've had the 1 seed in this new format. So that it's guaranteed to go through you, period. You have to take advantage of the Lambeau factor. But you also can't let what happened last year get into that, which is get lax, get lull. Okay, we're assuming guys are going to come in here scared. Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be 100%. Okay, yada, yada, yada. That doesn't mean you can let your foot off the gas. Matt LaFleur's motto has always been all gas, no brake. And they must have, I don't know, the gas pedal died in the third quarter that, or towards halftime of that Bucs game last year. There's a lot of playoff losses that stick out, not just last year, not just in 19, throughout the course of Aaron Rodgers' tenure, aside from the Super Bowl year. There are so many missed opportunities. This year and the team that they have, the guys that this team has coming back, Randall Cobb is back when no one thought he would be from core muscle surgery. He's in. That's almost guaranteed. Whitney Merciless, veteran pass rusher, thought to be done for the season with a torn hamstring. He's back 100%, we think. He'll be in the game. Zadarius Smith is active. Jair Alexander is active. Josh Myers is active. David Bakhtiari is active. Now, Alexander and Bakhtiari are questionable, but Zadarius Smith is going to play. As well as Rashawn Gary has played on the edge. Look, this is a scarier team than it was even 2 weeks ago when they locked up the 1 seed. but their nemesis in the playoffs the past 10 years is coming in. This is a bit of a double-edged sword. Alex, you know San Francisco well. They're in your division.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few things written up here about the Niners. You know, they got to keep trusting their run game. You know, Kyle Shanahan might actually have himself a lead back, so you got to keep feeding them and, you know, give a jet sweep every now and then to your most prized possession.
Isn't Deebo Samuel the lead back?
They got two lead backs pretty much.
Deebo's the lead back. Let's just put it that way. Remember the last time these two teams met in the playoffs in 2019, Raheem Mostert ran for like 1,000 yards in one game or whatever it was. I don't know. It's the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my life. So that can't happen again.
For the Niners, though, this defense has to come and play if they're going to want to win.
Right.
This ain't sunny California or the Dallas Dome. It's going to get chilly. It's going to be cold, and it's in Green Bay. So, and guess what? Green Bay's 8-0 at home this season.
See, now I got to knock on wood. God, you don't say these things. Anyways, no, this is not an automatic victory by any means. This is a nemesis. And while Green Bay is, as we pull things up here, favored by 5.5, I don't know if it's going to end up being that way. I don't want to say anything because I'm not going to jinx it, but Jimmy Garoppolo not having a 100% right throwing hand / thumb in the cold is going to be problematic, but you have to get to the point you said. They have their run game. They have two lead backs. Heck, Debo can play quarterback. We saw that against the Cowboys. He threw a touchdown, for God's sake. I mean, he's doing everything right now. We know Kyle Shanahan can be creative in the passing game. I know everybody saw that picture that popped up on social media with McVay, Shanahan, and LaFleur, all three on the Washington coaching staff in 2013. Kyle Shanahan is a maestro when it comes to play calling. And, you know, the last 2 or 3 times he and LaFleur have gone at it, he's gotten the best of him, with the exception of earlier on this year. But we can't look at that matchup earlier on in the year because, A, it was in September, B, it was in California. Even if it was in Green Bay, it still would have been a completely different story atmospherically. So if you're Green Bay, if you stop the run, you got to make Jimmy Garoppolo throw the football. You need to do that regardless, but even when he's not at 100%. Especially when Zadarius Smith is back, he's active, Randall Cobb is back, but you don't have a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You don't have that deep threat on the offensive side of it. You're going to have to go short mid-pass game with Lazard, with Cobb, and, you know, use the run to set up the play action with the tight ends and with Devontae Adams. Let's look now at Bengals Titans. That's the other game on Saturday. That's the 4:30 game on Saturday. Look, the Titans are the 1 seed in the AFC, but they might be the 1 seed I trust the least over the past few years. Just because I don't know. Like, there's no definitive way for me to have confidence in them because I've seen too much up and down from them. Now, Derrick Henry's coming back. That was confirmed today. Derrick Henry's coming back. So that's a good thing. Really good thing for them. Huge. But it's a Bengals defense that knows how to stop the run. We've seen that. The question is Ryan Tannehill going to do what he needs to do with his arm, number one? Number two, will Derrick Henry being back lead Mike Vrabel and the coaching staff to trust his arm a little bit less and trust the legs of Derrick Henry too much? Like, there's got to be a balance, of course, but is getting your star running back in the lineup here, is that going to, you know, sway the play calling away a little bit? And I haven't seen enough from Ryan Tannehill to have confidence in him throwing 35, 40 passes in a game and having success.
Well, the Titans are another good team at home. They're 7-2 at home. Bengals are 5-3 on the road this season. You know, and with Henry coming back, he's probably going to get a lot of snaps, and they're going to have to play bully ball. And for me, that defense has to make Joe Burrow uncomfortable, or else the game's going to get out of hand. The Titans are 17-7 since 2020 when they have Derrick Henry playing. In 2021, They went 6-2 with Henry. Without him, they went 6-3. So even when they didn't have him this season, they still won 6 games. I think the Titans are being heavily slept on, which could give them that fuel to get a big victory over the Bengals.
I think so too, and it's because of what I just said, and that adds fuel to the fire. But I'm still not going to sit here and say I have 100% confidence in them to go all the way. I think the Bengals are a nice story. I think they've done a great job getting to this point, but I don't see the Titans falling at home as good as they've been. I like that you mentioned that. Rams-Bucks, that's the other NFC game. This is a tough matchup for Tampa Bay, and here's why. Not because they already played in L.A. earlier in the year and the L.A. defense just decimated them. This is a Buccaneers team that got a cakewalk in the first round and a Rams team that obliterated a really good Arizona team. So, if anything, Sean McVay's on a warpath. And as a Packers fan, I kind of wanted L.A. to win that game so they could go to Tampa because I think this is going to be a tight, physical game, and I think those two are going to beat up on each other. So if Green Bay can get past San Francisco, whoever comes into Lambeau the next week is going to be beaten, battered, and bruised. Because both those defenses are incredibly physical. Incredibly physical.
I agree. And if you're a Rams fan, Stafford, he has to play very well because he was making a lot of mistakes down the stretch in the second half. And, McVay is also like 45-1 when he has the lead at halftime. But this is the GOAT, though, who came back from 28-3. So the Rams really have to put their foots on the gas and limit mistakes. As far as the Bucs, though, it's not like Brady has to prove anything to us. He is the GOAT. He has all these rings. But this Rams team did, like you said, just whoop up on the Arizona Cardinals team, who we once considered the best team during the regular season. So I agree, Brad. I think this is going to be a tough one. Rams are 7-2 on the road. Bucs are 7-1 at home. So, yeah, I think they're going to be pretty beaten up, whoever wins this game.
And then, of course, we got that Bills-Chiefs rematch as we start to wrap things up here in this segment. That Bills-Chiefs rematch, we don't really have to preview that much because we know what kind of game that's going to be. 6:30 kick on CBS Sunday evening. So be locked on for that one. When we come back here on The Score this afternoon, Steve Wiseman will get to talk about what he really gets paid for, and that's ACC basketball, specifically the Duke Blue Devils. Things are starting to heat up in an ACC that's been relatively mediocre to this point, but things are starting to heat up and get a little bit more competitive across the board. We'll take a look at the standings. We'll talk about Duke's last couple games and look ahead to what's going to be a fun weekend around Tobacco Road in the Tobacco Road Roundup here on The Score on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Hey, how long do we have?
At Blue Naples Pizza, an Italian restaurant. Every day, you get a large 2-topping pizza for only $11.99.
How long do we have on the break?
Watch football and enjoy our large 1-topping pizza and 10 wings for only $17.99. Plus lunch specials every day of the week. Blue Naples Pizza and Italian Restaurant, 1519 Union Cross Road in Kernersville.
This is Donald Ware, host of Box to Row. I'm giving you my NFL predictions and some NBA talk, plus a conversation with Buck Buchanan Award winner, Florida A&M linebacker Isaiah Land, right here on Box to Row.
From press box to press row with Donald Ware, Saturdays at 9 a.m. on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Looking to change things up a little? Visit Salon Resi. Located at 765 East Bluemont Road, Suite 200 in Mount Airy, Salon Resi is the newest high-end full-service salon and spa in the Triad. Salon Resi Spa includes massages and skincare. Get a full highlight treatment, shampoo and style, color and retouch, and much, much more. Salon Resi, where passion and creativity meet. 765 East Bluemont Road, Suite 200 in Mount Airy. We love sports.
Joe Louis, the greatest boxer ever lived.
Not only do we love sports, but we love to debate sports.
He bad in Captain Clay. He bad in Sugar Ray. He bad in that. Who that? The new boy has. Mike Tyson look like a bulldog. He bad at him too. He done whip Mike Tyson ass. He whip all their ass.
For the best sports analysis in the Triad.
What about Rocky Marciano?
In-depth local coverage of your favorite schools and teams.
Let me tell you something. One fall, Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Lewis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
And of course, the best sports debate in the Triad.
Beat Joe Lewis's ass.
Welcome to Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Joe Lewis was 75 years old when he fought.
You're welcome.
I don't know how old he was, but got it.
You are locked into Tobacco Road Sports Radio, your home for Triad Sports.
And you know this, man.
Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Shadow of Intent welcomes us back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Their new album, Elegy, is out. Came out last Friday. Very, very good if you're into that kind of stuff like Bubba Wallace is. Steve, let's get in the ACC here real quick. You were in Tallahassee the other night for that wild game. Tallahassee has been historically a house of horrors for Duke over the years. It continued to be that. But what did you see in that game? I know Florida State's kind of been up and down, but now they've beaten Miami, who beat Duke. So this is not a Florida State team that I think we thought we could trust 2 weeks ago. But when you get two pretty marquee wins like that at home, it says a lot about your ball club.
It sure does. And it was a tremendous basketball game. Back and forth, lead changes, ties, overtime, buzzer beating shots, that kind of stuff, right? Really good stuff. And yeah, you know, Leonard Hamilton, this is the type of team he has every year. They're long, they're athletic, they're tall, they're deep. They have veteran ball handlers. And it was really the first time this year that somebody kind of imposed their will on Duke. Miami didn't really do that. Miami beat them off the dribble a lot. Duke turned the ball over 17 times in that game. That's not taken away from Miami. I'm just trying to explain that this was a very physical game, and Florida State on their end of the court, you know, just killed Duke on the offensive rebounding. They had 19 offensive rebounds, which gave them 18 extra shots in the game that Duke didn't have. So it was 73 shots to 55. So even though Florida State shot 35%, they got all those extra, you know, shots at the basket, and that made the difference. And on the other end, Duke was unable to get into their offense like they normally do, especially in the half court, their sets, because Florida State really kind of pushed them out away from the basket, and they challenged every pass. They really made it hard. When guys got the ball, they weren't comfortable getting ready to get into the offense. And again, that's not something we've seen this year. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's a big problem as Duke gets ready for the next few games, because not every team is built like Florida State, right? But it is, the problem is that Duke had 15 turnovers against Florida State, 17 against Miami. That's starting to be a trend, right? Their turnovers are kind of climbing, whereas they've been a pretty good team in that department for most of the year. So that's a thing to watch as they get ready for these next stretch of games.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we've talked about it a number of times when you've been on here that there's only a handful of teams in the country that can take it to Duke physically in the paint. I guess we can add Florida State to that list now.
Yeah. And it's that, and on, I mean, all over the court, really, that's what happened. And so now they are going to play again next month in Durham. So we'll get to see them go at it again. We'll see if Duke can adjust by then. They certainly hope they will. But yeah, it's just that, you know, now this was true of the Miami game too. Miami had veteran ball handlers, Charlie Moore, Cameron McGusty. They're 60-year seniors, right? That's twice now that that type of player has given Duke a problem. So as we go forward here, they have Syracuse tomorrow. You know, Buddy Boeheim, Joe Girard have been in the league for a few years now. So we'll see how Duke handles them. And then we go forward to the rest of the ACC play. But it's something that Coach K has mentioned that, you know, he said, Duke is he said, we're going to have to be able to beat veteran teams to get where we want to go, which is Final Four, right? So until they do it, we're going to have a little bit of concern about it.
I want to ask you about this before we move off the Tallahassee thing. Florida State, by the way, has won 5 games in a row after starting ACC play 0-2. So we said, a couple weeks ago that Leonard Hamilton was one of those guys that coaching can win you a lot of games, regardless of what your roster looks like. And that has a lot to do with it right now. He's got those kids playing really, really well. But I want to ask you about this before we leave the Tallahassee aspect of it. Why was David Ross in Tallahassee number 1?
He has some sort of tie to the Florida State program. He was there on their behalf, it wasn't there on a Duke ticket. Let's put it that way. That's what I was told.
Yes.
So.
Coach K is a Cubs fan.
So is John
Shire.
But
that had nothing to do with it.
Right.
We don't think.
Right.
Number 2, something Coach K said in a presser last week about your articles. I couldn't quite tell if that was sarcasm or if that was just Coach K being Coach K and Coach K loves you, or I don't know.
There's some sarcasm there for sure. But, and as I say sarcastically, he mentioned in the press conference a week ago Monday in the ACC call, this was before the Wake Forest game. He mentioned something about he wasn't going to watch the national championship game that night, Alabama and Georgia. He was going to be either watching tape or reading one of my articles. And now later that night, he became violently ill and was not able to coach the Wake Forest game. So maybe he's reading too many of my articles. I don't know. Maybe it's too much truth for him. Made him sick. But anyway, now we have a good time going back and forth. So it's all good.
I will hearken back to when the Cardinals traded for, or were finalizing the trade for Nolan Arenado. That I can't remember if that was in a press conference or he texted you on the side and said, I swear to God, if you get that third baseman, I'm going to kill you.
It was in a post-game press conference. I asked a question about they beat Clemson that day. This was last year. They weren't very good, they actually won that game and played really well. And so we were talking about basketball, and he veered off onto Arenado. So it certainly was on his mind.
So in case you missed it, Coach K is a Cubs fan, in case you didn't get that before. Duke goes into this game against the Syracuse team who's 3-4 in conference play, but this is not a Syracuse team that you can take lightly. You've got the other Boeheim brother, or Boeheim child, I guess you could say, both on the team here. If anything, I think he's the better of the two in terms of overall talent. But this is a Syracuse team that always plays tough. Yeah, I get it. They're 500 overall. They're 3-4 in ACC play. But Jim Boeheim knows how to get a team up for a game, and this is a Syracuse team that plays with a lot of might, a lot of gumption. Very indicative of what Jim Boeheim has built over the years. And this is not that you can ever take Syracuse lightly, but I think this year more than a lot of others, we don't really know what we're going to get from them night in and night out, and that's why you can't take them lightly.
And they normally play better as the year goes on, right? They're always the team that sneaks into the field and gets to the Sweet 16. They play in Dayton first, and they end up knocking off a couple people. So they're going to get better as the year goes on. I'm not sure if they're going to make the tournament this year. I mean, they got a lot of work to do to get there, but tomorrow is a big start for them, right? If they win that one, that's a quad one win that they certainly need. So it's been a good rivalry since Syracuse came into the ACC. We love to see Boeheim and Coach K match wits. They're going to come with the 2-3 zone, just like the sun comes up in the East. They're going to be playing 2-3 zone, and Duke's going to have to shoot well. We don't know if Trevor Keels is going to play. That's still not been determined, and that'll play a role in this. Jeremy Roach will have to fill in at the guard position if that happens. But I think you'll see Banchero kind of in the middle of the zone. They'll kind of post him up there and maybe have post-to-post passing with Mark Williams. Mark Williams had a big game against Syracuse last year. Duke will certainly need that on offense. They can't rely on jump shooting unless it's AJ Griffin out there bombing them in, which he hasn't the last couple of games. So, but yeah, I think I saw the point spreads like 13 or 13 and a half. Duke's a favorite, which to me is a pretty big number.
That's favorable. Yeah. And you kind of led into my next question there, which was, okay, when you look at that 2-3 zone, we talked about it last week or a couple of weeks ago. Paulo Banchero doing such a good job of not resorting to that step back so much, but kind of mixing enough to where he knows he can get inside. He's not going to be able to just drive at people or get people to bite on ball fakes because there's not going to be that. And this is not the Syracuse zone is not your typical 2-3 zone in which they fly out at shooters all the time. This is a zone that is atypical of staying in there. They stay put. They stay home, I think is the terminology that a lot of people like to go with. And
they get in the passing lanes is what I was going to say too.
Right.
And that was a problem Duke had. It they couldn't get comfortable in their half court sets, and so obviously they're going to need to get the running game going, right? Get transition going. That's when Duke's at their best is in transition. They need to get better as a half court offense, and if they can't get the transition going, then they're going to need to do that tomorrow against Syracuse.
Right, and I think if you set them up, high post or at the free throw line, you kind of start moving it post to post. That's the key to beating this Syracuse zone is while they stay put and get in passing lanes a lot of the time, if you can basically turn it into a hockey passing kind of thing where you move the ball almost at a rapid kind of San Antonio Spurs-like kind of pace, it throws them off a little bit. Plus, if you can get out in transition, the other key is, to not let them get set. What have you seen out of Carolina, Wake, Louisville? I know Wake just went in and beat Virginia. There was some weird stuff that happened with that Louisville-BC game the other night. There was a rain delay in Louisville, for God's sake. I mean, leave it to the city of Louisville to not turn the chicken bucket back over the hole in the roof of the KFC Yum Center. That game was happening a studio over for me at Learfield the other night, and some folks were not pleased with the hour-and-a-half delay happening at the KFC Yum Center. But when you get past, UNC and Wake in the standings, there's a lot of a muddle to get through. UNC, Wake, and Notre Dame too. Wake goes in and beats Virginia for the first time in forever. There's just outside of them, it's just a lot of meh. Really,
it's a muddled mess. And right now, I think the ACC will be fortunate to get 4 or 5 teams max, right, in the tournament, and that's not good for the ACC. That's a terrible number for them.
It's not something we've said or had to say in a long time.
Right, and Notre Dame was really playing well there, and then they went and lost the game last week to Virginia Tech, which they kind of gave that away late when they had it won. So, the other night, the Florida teams flexed their muscles on both ends of the state when Miami just absolutely clobbered Carolina, and Florida State took care of Duke. And we've been wondering, is Carolina the second best team in the ACC behind Duke? I think Miami's kind of staked their claim, haven't they? I know they lost to Florida State. That was a road game, and they're going to play again tomorrow in Miami. So now we'll see who truly is number one in the league between those two. But Wake Forest is still hanging around. I think they've got a good chance. They're 41st in KenPom right now and kind of moving up. So they've got a chance to get off the bubble and solidify themselves, which would be a huge step for Steve Forrest's program. But I don't really have a lot of faith in Louisville or Syracuse right now. Virginia Tech, they got such a slow start. It's going to be hard for them to get back caught up in the league. And the rest of the conference is just, like you said, meh. NC State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, Pittsburgh, BC, they're not very good teams, to be honest with you. And so, that's what we're looking at here is, maybe 4 or 5 teams getting in, and, Notre Dame and Wake have work to do to be included there.
They certainly do. But if there's anybody that can do it, I think it's those two coaches, and they do it in completely different styles when you look at Mike Bray and Steve Forbes. But it amazes me that Miami, Florida State, even Notre Dame and Wake Forest, for that matter, aren't getting votes in the AP poll.
I'm
not
a little
getting
surprised.
As many as we thought they were.
Right. I'm surprised by that too. And a lot of times it was people complaining Carolina wasn't getting the votes. They should have been in there. And of course they've proven they're not worthy right now when you get beat like that by Miami. But, I think Florida State, if they win tomorrow against Miami and complete that sweep, coming off beating Duke, I think you'll see them kind of move in probably. Or if Miami wins, after coming off their big win over Carolina, that may give them a boost to get them in the top 25. I think we'll end up somebody besides Duke will be in there. But right now, Duke's kind of helping everybody out. They lost to Miami, they lost to Florida State. that gives them 2 quality wins, those teams that they didn't have. But Duke's got to quit being so benevolent here to the ACC and kind of take care of business themselves.
Right? They got to stop, handing these free cards out to people. Okay, we'll get you in the top 25, but that's it. That's all we're doing for you.
Give you a quad 1 win. That's it.
Yep. It's been such a weird start to this ACC slate. I can't remember a time, even before the ACC expanded to 16, 18 teams, where things were this muddled, where there was not as much parity, where you knew for sure who the best 3, 4, 5 teams were, where you almost could put money down right now and feel confident about who's going to get the double buys. I haven't been able to say that for ever.
Yeah, it's we can't right now. You don't know. I mean, I'm thinking back the last time the ACC had a really strong ACC year was the 2019 tournament when you had Duke, Carolina, and Virginia were all number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. And so at this time of year, you knew they were going to get 3 of the 4 double buys, right? Going into the ACC tournament. You could even before in the middle of January, you knew it. Right now, we don't know. I just mentioned like there's 6 teams right now that have a shot at it, at one of those 4. Miami, Florida State, Duke, Carolina, Notre Dame, Wake. And then Virginia is tied with Wake right now, but I don't have a lot of faith in what they're going to do this year. So, you've got a group there that Louisville's in that group too. They're 5-3, but again, I don't have a lot of faith in them either. But so we've got a kind of a muddled mess there.
Yeah, I mean, Wake went in and beat Virginia head-to-head, so I think they have the tiebreaker. And that's not a place Wake Forest has won John Paul Jones Arena in a very, very long time. So, look, I mean, it's difficult to sit here and kind of pick through who might be able to come out of the woodwork because we haven't seen enough from any of these other, slightly competitive temes to definitively say, all right, here's who I'm going to go with to kind of ascend forward here. Because there's not enough to go off of to predict a Virginia, to predict a Louisville, to predict a Virginia Tech, to make that leap.
So Virginia Tech is the one team that, I mean, their metrics are still very strong. I think they're 31st in KenPom, despite being 2-4 in the ACC. But they got BC this weekend. Then they play Carolina on the road, and then Miami and Florida State. And so the next 4 games here, 2 weeks, we're going to know if Virginia Tech has that rise in them, right? Because they have the ability. Right. They played well against Duke in the first half.
We know all these teams have the talent and they have the coaching. It's can they go through with it? Especially Virginia Tech's about to hit their toughest point of their schedule. Mm-hmm. None of these teams have hit the toughest points of their schedule yet. So we're going to find out pretty soon what these teams are made of. Virginia Tech's going to be first on that list.
And, a lot of times the schedule is backloaded. I mean, Carolina and Duke play their games, the last 3 weeks of the regular season, right? So it's backloaded for a reason for TV. And so we'll see a lot of the really good matchups in February. So there's time and there's opportunity out there. But, somebody like Virginia Tech has to, we're going to know, again, in 2 weeks, we're going to know if they're ready to ascend or if they're just going to plummet and be where they are and not be a tournament contender.
Before we let you go here, Steve, I want to look at the national landscape of things in terms of college basketball as a whole. Gonzaga's gone back up top, but there's been a lot of parity, a lot of upsets, especially over the last 2.5 weeks, to where I'm even at the point now where I don't even have a solid prediction on who's going to be a 1 seed or who's going to be a 2 seed, because every time I think Baylor has it, Baylor's number 1, they lose 2 games in a row. Texas Tech beats Baylor, then they go out next game and lose to Oklahoma State. Gonzaga got played tough by San Francisco last night. USC's lost 2 in a row and barely beat Colorado last night. Utah, I can't remember if they beat UCLA or not last night, but the only team I really have any confidence in right now might be Arizona, because I haven't seen them waver or falter or anything of that sort. And there's always parity in college basketball. And there was a lot of it last year, too, during the COVID year. But this year, more so than ever, it's so topsy-turvy, just like it was in college football. It's difficult for me to say who's a 1, who's a 2, or who's even a 3 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you just rattled it off, and it looked like Purdue was ready to be that team, and then last night they lost a rivalry game to Indiana. So
I believe
again,
that was the first time in 9 games Indiana had beaten Purdue.
right?
So,
Yeah, it had been a bug versus windshield type of thing for a while there, and
Right.
it finally flipped again. But yeah, and this is the time of year when we see upsets. We see them in late January. Teams come back from holiday breaks, they get into conference play. There's some adjustments to be made. Duke's going through it. Lots of teams are going through it. So, by the way, UCLA and Arizona play coming up this next week on the 25th. So we'll get some answers there in the Pac-12. But
eyes and ears peeled on that one. And Pac-12 is a strong basketball conference this year. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the Big Ten being good. The Big Ten is strong as it always is, but don't sleep on the Pac-12. USC's, I don't think anybody expected them to be nearly as good as they have been. Granted, they've fallen back down to earth a little bit, but man, this is the strongest Pac-12 I've seen in quite a while.
yeah, I mean, Arizona, UCLA, and USC are right there at the top. And Oregon's always a good program with Dana Altman, so that gives you 4 quality teams. And yeah, it's good. The Big 12, I think, is probably. I think the Big 12 has 8 of their 12 teams are in the top 50 of the net. So
Right.
I would say they're probably the best conference right now. But then you look at the SEC, and you got Kentucky and Auburn, right?
This is the best SEC I've seen in quite a while in terms of basketball, too. Auburn is playing just mighty good basketball right now. The Tennessee-Kentucky game Saturday afternoon, I think, got 1.4 million viewers, which was a season high for ESPN since the beginning of the year when the Champions Classic happened. So
Right.
It's a very good Kentucky team. Tennessee, we always expect them to be good. I don't think we expected Auburn to be quite this good. But then again, you've got an Arkansas team that made the Sweet 16 a year ago. They're still kind of sitting there. Mississippi State can't be counted out of anything. That's a team that always likes to play tough.
Alabama's got a good program.
Alabama,
Yeah.
LSU is playing surprisingly good this year as well. They've been in the top 25. Again, you said 8 of the top 12, 8 of the 12 in the Big 12 are in the top 50 of the net. Iowa State, Texas Tech, Baylor, Chris Beard's Texas Longhorns have really started to come on of late. Oklahoma State beating Texas Tech. That's a big win for them. A&M in the SEC even has started to come on a little bit as well. So, very rarely have I been able to say that the ACC was not among the cream of the crop in terms of the Power 5 in basketball. But I can definitively say that the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and I think at this point probably even the Pac-12 are above the ACC in terms of overall level of competitive teams.
Yeah, the Big East, you can throw them in there too. And
the Big East has been a dogfight, and I told people that in November that it was going to be this good, and it has been, and it will continue to be. But that's a basketball-only conference, and that's it's a different conversation. But
what else we were talking about Gonzaga and
Right.
the West Coast Conference.
For once, is actually good.
Yes, we used to say once you get to this point with Gonzaga, they're going to roll through and they're going to be a 1 seed because they're not going to lose again, right?
Right.
That's not the case this year. There's 4 teams in that league, right? San Francisco, St. Mary's, BYU, and Gonzaga, who are all in the top 40 of KenPom. And
Right. And
so
San Francisco
that's better
was
than
in
the
that
ACC
game last night. Right. San Francisco came in that game last night, I think, at 15-2 overall, and was in that game for the majority of it until Gonzaga pulled away. It's a San Francisco team that a year and a half ago beat Virginia to open the season by 25 points. So they've been, on the come up here for a while. But again, it's the first time you can say the WCC is actually good, because usually you get to this point in the season and you get the Pepperdimes and you get the Santa Claras and the Loyola Marimounts but look, BYU entering this conference did a lot in terms of competitiveness. Not only did it give Gonzaga somebody other than St. Mary's to compete against, it brought up the compete level of teams like San Francisco that were kind of on the fringe as far as programs were, and they're starting to ascend to that level of competitiveness as well. When we come back, we're going to dive into the association. Steve, thanks so much for coming on with us. We really appreciate it as always.
Glad to do it. Always.
Dive into the association. We'll spin around Buzz City. We'll talk NBA. We'll talk NHL as well. All that coming up in hour 2 of The Score on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
You're listening to The Rundown.
They're missing some parts, but Clemson's had the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the country, it feels like, or at least top 5, like the past 4 or 5 years. So it's not like they don't have kids on the sideline waiting for an opportunity, like 4 and 5-star kids that we haven't heard about. Some talking heads out there have said, whoa, this Clemson team, they don't have T. Higgins, they don't have these wide receivers. What are they going to do? They're going to just plug in the next 2 guys.
Exactly, like they did the year before.
Yeah.
The year before when Mike Williams was there.
You don't win 10-plus games a year for this will be like the 10th year in a row if they do it this year. You don't do that by depending on 1 or 2 guys and having to reload, and then 2 years later you're back. Clemson's been steady the whole time. Sammy Watkins, before Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins,
for sure.
They have wide receivers. I don't even know what the names are going to be. I ain't even worried about that. Trevor Lawrence will find The Rundown with Desmond Johnson, Saturdays at 10 a.m. right here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
This is Donald Ware, host of Box to Row. I'm giving you my NFL predictions and some NBA talk, plus a conversation with Buck Buchanan Award winner, Florida A&M linebacker Isaiah Land, right here on Box to Row.
From Press Box to Press Row with Donald Ware, Saturdays at 9 a.m. on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
The wait is over. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails is now open. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel. Open 7 days a week starting at 11 a.m. daily. Freshly made Southern cuisine with signature cocktails and lunch specials daily. The location for your next event with Simply Sonia's catering specials. Open now. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel in Winston-Salem.
Here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio, we ask the tough questions.
Hey, you got any left-handed footballs?
We're never afraid to tell you how we feel.
Oh, we look like the damn Bad News Bears.
We'll debate sports. We'll debate anything.
Man, you lying. You ain't never met Martin Luther King. Not the way I be. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he did not.
No matter what, Tobacco Road Sports Radio has you covered.
I'm going to come right back at him. The soldiers.
You're listening to Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Father Time is undefeated. It's going to hit Tom Brady eventually, too. It might be this year. Hopefully it's this year.
And Matt LaFleur went to both of them and said, hey, remember that play you drew up on notebook paper on Thursday? Yeah, run it now.
That's the thing that's kind of tripping me up here. We've been clowning Kyrie Irving and his behavior for the past 5 years. I feel like I just got a point, like on a show or something.
3, 2, 1, Kernersville, you've got state champions coming back home. The Eastern Side Eagles have just won Class 4A state championship.
On the line with NASCAR superstar Bubba Wallace. Bubba, what type of music are you listening to right now? Do you listen to anything particular to get you hyped before a race?
I'm in the heavy metal stuff, like the screamo stuff you can't understand. That's right up my alley.
Tie game at 41. Murr takes the snap. Fade. Right corner of the end zone for Timmons. He bobbled it and then honed it in the right corner of the end zone. Terrell Timmons Jr.
TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, your home for Triad Sports. Kim Source Direct is a single source supplier. In business since 2007, they have over 80,000 products for customers just like you. Located in the heart of North Carolina, they supply cleaning products all throughout the Southeast. Whether you're a commercial business, office, or municipal building, looking for wholesale cleaning products, chemicals, cleaning equipment, or service, they've got you covered. Please reach out and start saving money today. Stop by their store open to the public and save. Kim Source Direct, 1207 South Park Drive in Kernersville. Give them a call at 336-515-9990. Order from the website at kimsourcedirect.com. Craving fried chicken? Stop by One Stop on the way to the big game. One Stop number 6, located at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville, serves fresh fried chicken and famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Craving wings? Come try the new spicy breaded wings. Get a 5-wing meal with 6 taters and a roll for just $7.39. Now in regular, hot, ranch, or spicy. One Stop number 6, 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville. Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman joined alongside Alex Wober. Our producer, Desmond Johnson, Christian Emery, and Michael Davis will join us a little bit later on here in the program. Des, I understand you've got some news. I'm sure many of you heard what happened with the East Forsyth Eagles and their offensive coordinator. You want to tell us a little bit more about the fundraising efforts that will be going on in K Vegas here on Sunday?
Yeah, big shout out to Jenny Fulton, athletic director Alan Plaster, and a handful of others that have come together to put this together. At Gypsy Road Brewing Company, this upcoming Sunday, they are holding a fundraiser to #Help the Hortons from 2 to 6 p.m. It's a live auction. It starts at 4 p.m. To bid on unique experiences. Some of the things you can bid on: a pool party with the athletic director, Alan Plaster, and his wife, Ashley Yao Plaster, for up to 12 people. A cookout at Sean Marshall Kofer and Courtney Eberly Kofer's home on their great patio for up to 8 people. Fine dining dinner with Jenny and her husband, Bo Fulton, with chef Ethan Earnhardt for up to 8 people. You can bid on an opportunity to watch head coach Todd Willard in action with 2 sideline passes, pregame with the team, and eat with the team during the football season. That's East Forsyth. And Tobacco Road's actually involved with this as well. You can actually bid to be a guest panelist on the Rundown Show with myself on Saturday mornings, WWBG 1470 AM, and all of our social media, as well as TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. You would also be a guest for The Nest with head coach Todd Willard, which is every Tuesday night during the season for high school football. And you get a Tobacco Road Sports Radio t-shirt or sweatshirt. That's one of the things that you can actually bid on, that whole package: the guest panelists on the Rundown, the sweatshirt, the all that good stuff. And then finally, you can bid on an East Forsyth football helmet and jersey. All live auction items start at $300 minimum bid. Definitely need to show up at Gypsy Road on Sunday. It's all for a great cause to help out offensive coordinator Coach Horton and his family that were displaced with a house fire a couple of weeks ago in Abington and Kernersville. And it's just really good to see the community step up and help one of our own.
Yeah, and there's nothing like high school football or high school sports really in North Carolina, and the better than a lot of people the kind of camaraderie that comes with that East Forsyth Eagle family. And it's been East Forsyth, it's been Glenn, it's been us here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio that have kind of reached out and helped out wherever we can because of everything that East Forsyth has done for the community. It's only right that we give back in this time of need for him and the Eagles. In Panthers news, before we get into the Charlotte Hornets, we'll stay in the city. Hired Ben Mcadoo as the offensive coordinator. Des, how do you feel about that?
Oh
God, here we go.
I don't know how to feel. I really don't know how to feel. I wanted Pep Hamilton. Let's just start right there. I wanted Pep Hamilton. He's from Charlotte. He's the quarterback whisperer. He basically built Andrew Luck. He was the quarterback's coach for Justin Herbert his rookie year with the Chargers. If the main problem with the Panthers is quarterback play, you've got a 25-year-old Sam Darnold that you're convinced has something in him. Well, if he can't have it with Pep Hamilton, then he doesn't have it. So to me, it was like, all right, let's get a guy in here that can coach this kid up, and let's see if he's got something or not, and we'll go from there. The fact that Pep Hamilton denied the interview request as a bit of an eye-opener. I don't know if he has denied any other requests. That would make this sound a lot better, but if he's out here interviewing for other jobs and then the Panthers call and he's like, I don't want to talk to them. They got a little too much going on over there. Thanks, but no thanks. That's an indictment on the Panthers, like the front office and everything going on with it. Ben Mcadoo, my understanding is he's not a bad offensive coordinator. That he was actually a pretty damn good offensive coordinator and was actually an offensive consultant for the Cowboys this past year.
His rise came under Mike McCarthy as the Packers OC a few years back. So, and then he of course got the Giants head coaching job. Can't wait to see that Denny's Applebee's Max play sheet come back out next year. You can order the All-Star Super 8 Motel Special or whatever. I don't know.
It can't be any worse than what it was. That's kind of what I'm looking
Right.
at. And the thing I was worried about was that the past couple of weeks, Matt Rule says one thing and does another. And this whole time he's been saying he wanted a guy with NFL play calling experience, right? So
Which he got, but
he got it, but almost in spite of himself, because the last thing we had heard was Scotty Montgomery was the top candidate for this role, who has never called an NFL football game. And if you ask an East Carolina football fan, they'll throw trash at you if you bring up his name. So it's like, why was he even a candidate? Or Jay Gruden. The last time we saw him, he was outside of a bar with a young girl smoking pot out in an alleyway, and now he's going to be the offensive coordinator for the Panthers. You know what I mean? Like, what were we doing? What were we doing? So, and almost in spite of them trying to mess this up, Mcadoo may have been the most qualified candidate of the bunch that they ended up hiring. But I mean, we still don't have an offensive line. Doesn't really matter who they put back there. So it's like, I'm a Panther fan, and it's just kind of been. This is a tough time of the year. This is a tough time of the year to be a Panther fan right now.
Just think at one point, Jay Gruden had all three of these individuals under his umbrella as understudies.
Yeah. Right.
Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur.
I know Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of push for what happened in the Super Bowl against the Patriots and the GOAT and everything else, but I love Kyle Shanahan's offense. I love it. It literally, it's a throwback to me. I think I mentioned it last week on the rundown. When their running backs get the ball, like at the mesh point, like when they're getting handed off, they're coming at you in the hole at like 40 miles an hour. Like you can tell
trust me.
The way they run, they hit the hole like they're expecting to hurt someone. And I just finished watching the Panthers play 17 games where the ball gets handed off and the running back kind of tippy toes around. So maybe there's a hole here and he'll try to squeeze through it. And the whole point is to not touch anyone. San Francisco hits the hole looking to touch you first. And that's a huge difference. And I think that's why they're going to be a problem. They're going to be an out, a big problem in these playoffs. They're the team that nobody wants to play because they're the most physical and it's cold outside. When it gets cold outside, you don't want to play the teams that are looking to hit you. You want to play the teams that are running away from you. And San Francisco, they are not built that way. So I like Kyle Shanahan. I'm hoping maybe Mcadoo brings something like that to the table in Charlotte because Lord knows we need it.
Well, here's the good news for Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Brett. My question is, the report that I saw was Ben McAdoo has been trying to get into this Panthers organization for 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's like
magically
come on in, offensive coordinator, why not? But
I think they interviewed him for quarterback coach, the
Yep.
past 2 years. And the first year, Rule took Joe Brady as offensive coordinator over McAdoo. McAdoo actually interviewed for that position 2 years ago. And then last year, I believe he interviewed for the quarterback coach position or something and didn't get that. And I guess third time's the charm. But apparently Rule likes to go to people that he's interviewed multiple times because he interviewed a lot of these candidates already. He didn't really go out of his wheelhouse with the guys he wanted to bring in. But again, he came this close to not doing what he said he wanted to do, which was bringing somebody that has NFL play calling experience. And he almost forgot he said it. He said it like 4 days ago. Like literally, like he does this all the time. It drives me nuts. And I don't know. If something happens to Matt Rule, I'd imagine McAdoo would be the interim. And I don't know if that makes me feel any better. But we've got a hot mess in Charlotte right now. So,
you know who's not a hot mess in Charlotte? It's a team a little bit down the road. That's the Charlotte Hornets.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the win streak came to an end. We jinxed them last week. So here's what we're not going to do today. Is we're not going to talk them up a ton because the last time we did that, they, crapped the bed against the very terrible Orlando Magic, as Christian Emery and Michael Davis are magically joining us at the perfect time. Michael, we'll get to the rest of the NBA in a second here, but the Hornets are not a mess necessarily. They're playing really good basketball right now. We talked about it a ton last week, so we're not going to talk it up as much this week. We're going to get to the rest of the league. As to not jinx the Hornets. It's not because we don't like the Hornets anymore. Trust me, we all like the Hornets, okay? Except Michael.
Yeah, you can tell the team I'm representing today. I saw Brett was wearing the Homer stuff last week with the Hornets jersey. And
Well, I've got a different attire on today, as does yeah. Do we need to wager? We'll get to hockey later. Let's ignore it. Yeah, that's what Christian's here for. Michael's here for the basketball. The 1B seed in the East, Miami Heat. That may change in a few days because there is no Lonzo Ball for the foreseeable future for the Chicago Bulls. Meniscus tear is what I heard last, so that's lengthy.
It's going to be a while.
Least. Yeah. So, look, you throw Charlotte into the mix here with a very jumbled Eastern Conference. Joel Embiid had 50 points the other night. That monkey's off your back. And then you go into Martin Luther King Day. Miles Bridges goes off and just becomes unconscious in Madison Square Garden. And then you have a pretty tight game the other night that you're able to pull out and get that victory. But you look at the Eastern Conference standings right now, it's a dogfight from 1 through 10.
Yeah, and I just want to see like the standings between the East and the West. I was looking at this earlier today. There's so much parity in the Eastern Conference, which is good. Like you talk from like 1 seed Chicago / Miami, all the way down to the 11th and 12th team who would miss the playoffs now. The Knicks and the Hawks, they're all separated by 10 games. But if you look at the West, that only goes from 1 seed Phoenix down to 5 seed Dallas. And really, if you look at the West, it's like Phoenix, Golden State, and then there's a drop off. And then, most of the teams like 7, 8, 9 aren't even competitive right now. But the East, like other than Indiana, Detroit, or Orlando, like I could see any of those teams making the playoffs and maybe even winning a series if they're lucky.
And look, Orlando and Detroit, we're going to mark them out of it. Indiana just went into Golden State last night and beat the Warriors, who are at full strength, by the way, in overtime.
The Pacers are not, which I don't even know how to pronounce half those players for the Pacers.
We don't know who they are. That's the thing. We don't know who they are. And they go in and beat the Golden State Warriors. We have no
Golden State.
What was our thing a few weeks ago with no-name Johnsons? The Indiana Pacers are just a team, outside of DeMontis Sabonis and Miles Turner, a team of no-name Johnsons. By the way, Des, get on the merch.
Yeah, did Sabonis and Turner even play yesterday?
I don't think they did.
Which makes it even crazier that they would be.
I think Turner's been shut down at least till the deadline, so they can figure out whether or not they're going to trade him. But they're 8 games under 500 right now. Charlotte is sitting a game and a half behind Cleveland for that 6th spot. I mean, if you would have told me that Cleveland and Philly would be tied standings wise right now, I called you crazy at this point in the season. But the Wizards, the Celtics are still in it. The Raptors are still in it. The Knicks are starting to come on here a little bit. I don't think we can count them out of it completely. When you look, 1 through 11, it's still tight. And I think the Pacers might have a chance to jump back into this, especially if the Hawks are going to do what I think they're going to do and just kind of tank here the second half. And then you look at the West, once you get past the Clippers at 9, it's not competitive at all. I mean, I don't even want to call Portland competitive at this point.
Which is a shame. Obviously, they struggled early on. Lillard struggled early on. Now Lillard's not even playing. So Portland's pretty much out of it. But I want everyone today, which is January 21st on a Friday, on The Score with Brett Wiseman, of course, like take a screenshot of the Eastern Conference standings and the Western Conference. In a month's time, the East is going to be completely reseeded.
Which one stays the same. Yeah, exactly.
The West is going to stay pretty much consistent other than maybe like 1 or 2 teams. The East, we could see a team like Cleveland or Charlotte, who are 6 and 7 right now, be like a 2 or 3 seed in a month. Well, I don't remember the last time we saw a NBA season much like this one.
There has very rarely been an NBA season in which there is this much parity. And
in one conference.
In one conference. And granted, we always look at the West as being kind of the dominant conference, but we know who the dominant teams are out there. And we have a sense of who the dominant teams are in the East as well. But the thing is, there's not a whole lot of teams that are more dominant than anyone else. Phoenix is above and beyond anybody else in the Western Conference right now. Dallas has the ability to get up there to 2, I would think.
Which
I don't
Dallas
think.
is struggling.
Here's the thing: I don't think Brooklyn's that much better than Miami, or that Miami's that much better than Milwaukee, or that Milwaukee's that much better than Chicago, or so on and so forth. There's not much difference between each one of these top 6 teams, except maybe Cleveland different from everybody else. But Cleveland and Charlotte are not all that much different from everybody above them.
Yeah. What we'll be talking about in May is when it comes to playoff matchups and seeing who advances in the playoffs to the finals. For the West, it's going to be who's more talented, who has the better team. But for the East, it's going to be either experience in the playoffs or it's just going to be a simple matchup. Like I said it last year, the Bucks and Heat, that was going to be deciding the NBA champion. But, Miami didn't match up well against Milwaukee, and Milwaukee went to the finals. So the East is really going to be matchup based in terms of who goes farther this season.
I totally agree. And while the NBA playoffs are generally matchup based, Alex,
Michael,
I was actually trying to draw Alex into this.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no. It's I can't remember a time in which you could say, okay, you're going into a 1-8 matchup with, all right, let's say, well, there's not going to be a 1-8 until the play-in's over, but, let's say the Knicks win the play-in, and they get in and they play Brooklyn, who's a 1 seed. 3 years ago, you would have said a 1-8's a 4-game sweep. A 2-7's a 4-game sweep. A, with this play-in now, B, with the East as perilous as it is, you can't go into any series right now and say, all right, I'm putting my money on this team in this many games. Like, it's almost impossible to guarantee anything right now.
100%, Brett. I think with the East, you can say that for sure. The West, on the other hand, I could see some sweeps possibly. But, yeah, I mean, when I first saw that Chicago got all these players in free agency, I kind of had the feeling, as did a lot of other people, that this really could work out and could be really special for the Chicago Bulls. And I think, like you said, the parity in the East, they have a good record, but I just don't think anybody outside of Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Miami really have a chance in the East. That's just my opinion, and I enjoy the parity a lot. But I think the East is not as complicated as people are trying to make it sound, because the Brooklyn Nets are out with their 2 best players right now, and they have just as good of a record as Chicago or Miami at the 3 seed. So I think we could see some sweeps in the East, but I agree with what you're saying. I think it could get really interesting with this 7, 8, 9, 10. Charlotte, I think they're a top 10 team right now. I think Charlotte has really proved a lot of people wrong, and they have a really good depth on that team, and they're really coming out of their shell there in Charlotte.
I mean, this is the first time, again, I can say in a long time that the Hornets have this much depth and could have multiple all-stars come, the next couple of weeks. That Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, and LaMelo Ball, all 3 are not only worthy of being all-stars, but very well could be. And I think, it's a real good shot that they will be in Cleveland for the All-Star game, for All-Star games in Cleveland for some reason. I don't know why.
I will say one more thing. As long as Mason Plumlee's not shooting free throws, the Hornets are fine.
Dear God. Can we talk about that for a second?
That might have been worse than no, it can't be worse than the App State free throw from
Now,
a few years
you
ago.
read my mind. The App State Western Carolina free throw. Do you know how many people have sent me that GIF when I bring up Appalachian State in literally any other sport other than even when I bring them up in football? You guys did this. Thanks. We're not in the SoCon anymore.
Yeah.
For those of us Appalachian State people, for App State to be as good as they are in basketball right now, for those of us like myself and Christian and Alex to some degree that had to sit through the Jeff Capel, the Jim Fox eras of, no more than 25 people showing up to the Convocation Center. Now it's packed every night. Crazy. Got to get in a break here. When we come back, hockey, right? Yeah, Alex, show us it. Yeah, we're going to talk about hockey when we get back.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
You're listening to The Rundown.
They're missing some parts, but Clemson's had the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class in the country, it feels like, or at least top 5, the past 4 or 5 years. So it's not like they don't have kids on the sideline waiting for an opportunity, like 4 and 5-star kids that we haven't heard about. Some talking heads out there have said, well, this Clemson team, they don't have T. Higgins, they don't have these wide receivers. What are they going to do? They're going to just plug in the next 2 guys.
Exactly, like they did the year before.
Yeah.
The year before when Mike Williams was there.
You don't win 10 plus games a year for this will be like the 10th year in a row if they do it this year. You don't do that by depending on 1 or 2 guys and having to reload, and then 2 years later you're back. Clemson's been steady the whole time. Sammy Watkins, before Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins. For sure. They have wide receivers. I don't even know what the names are going to be. I ain't even worried about that. Trevor Lawrence will find them. The Rundown with Desmond Johnson, Saturdays at 10 a.m. right here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
The wait is over. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails is now open. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel. Open 7 days a week starting at 11 a.m. daily. Freshly made Southern cuisine with signature cocktails and lunch specials daily. The location for your next event with Simply Sonia's catering specials. Open now. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel in Winston-Salem.
Kim Source Direct is a single source supplier. In business since 2007, they have over 80,000 products for customers just like you. Located in the heart of North Carolina, they supply cleaning products all throughout the Southeast. Whether you're a commercial business, office, or municipal building, looking for wholesale cleaning products, chemicals, cleaning equipment, or service, they've got you covered. Please reach out and start saving money today. Stop by their store open to the public and save. Kim Source Direct, 1207 South Park Drive in Kernersville. Give them a call at 336-515-9990. Order from the website at kimsourcedirect.com. You are locked into Tobacco Road Sports Radio's TGIF lineup.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
I ain't set this up. I ain't know nothing about this. This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Damn it.
You're welcome. TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Sounds like we're about to enter the crack house, I guess you could say, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle with the Shadow of Intent bringing us back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Blues and Kraken tonight. Those are our two teams. Yes, thank you. Do we need to wager something or?
Brett, you know this. We can't wager when the Kraken are the third worst team in the NHL. We're not the Vegas Knights over here, okay?
No one ever will be. Even if the NHL expands to like 38 teams, no one will ever be Vegas ever again. Because they're not going to, just rig the expansion draft like they did this time. Also, there's one thing I know I'm not betting. It's my Braden Shen autographed puck. Not happening. Christian. Carolina Hurricanes. We've talked about their, okay, they need a number one goaltender, yada, yada, so on and so forth. First of all, I learned more about Rod Brindamore on the TNT broadcast the other night when Paul Bichonette talked about how absolutely jacked he is, and they literally have to kick him out of the weight room. He's 50 years old.
Yeah,
I wish I had that much energy now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him pregame doing some stuff on the ice. I don't know how he's that jacked for being 50 years old.
He's
and the dude,
50.
I mean, he may be jacked in his arms, but his thighs and legs are huge. You think, what's his name? The former running back for Boston College. You thought his legs
AJ
were,
Dillon, Quadzilla. Yeah, there you go.
You got his legs. Rod Brindamore probably rivals that size.
I still want to give myself a little bit of credit for naming my fantasy football team. One of them, Quadzilla, Quadzilla, or something like that. And made my team image just a really zoomed in picture of AJ Dillon's quads and training camp shorts. Very very solid, very solid. That's a cold weather back, is what we're getting at. But I think we learned a lot about the Hurricanes, not just in that aspect, but the mentality that Rod Brindamore has under them. From everything that went down Wednesday, and you and I were kind of conversing back and forth about it, with the Trocheck-Marchand kind of feud. Chip Alexander, who I want to have on this show at some point, from one of Steve's colleagues at the Raleigh News and Observer, compared Vincent Trocheck's style of play to Brad Marchand, which I think is an insult to Vincent Trocheck because Brad Marchand doesn't look like a character from a 2007 Disney Pixar movie.
You're not wrong.
Also doesn't cry after his team loses and become a meme. Anyways, still very much. Oh, that's the wrong patch. Still very much. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we know
where that came from. But Brad Marchand just irks me to some degree where I forget how to speak. Like, he just has that effect on people. And the quote came out, he deleted the Instagram post, and he said, it's like comparing a Lamborghini to a Prius. Kane's Twitter, I don't know who the admins are, but they just keep, I don't know if they just, replenish them, if they grow them on trees. I don't know. They just come up with, the most creative Twitter admins ever. That people like me that have interned for teams before wish we could be that good at it. I don't know where they pull these kids off the street from, but God, the L stands for Lamborghini. Man, gold.
Yeah, I mean,
and Brad Marchand's, this is why we pay 20% in escrow. The admin had the perfect response, which was, Brad, we just tweet. We don't even talk to Tom Dundon. What do you want us to do about it? But that was the most complete first period the Canes have played all season long. That's the best period the Canes have played all season long, first, second, or third. It happened to be in the first. It happened to be on a big night for Boston when Willie O'Ree's number went to the rafters. So to come into an environment like that, yeah, it's cool to be a part of. And Rod Brindamore talked about that in TNT the other night when they interviewed him in between periods, and he and Paul Bichonette kind of kissed in between cameras, but they're two really good friends. TNT's hitting ESPN in the mouth when it comes to entertainment in terms of, intermission. But you look at everybody that scored. Everybody had a hand in that first period. It was every time I looked down and looked back up, I was writing an article. Every time I looked down at my laptop and looked back up, the Hurricanes had scored another goal. It was the most complete period they played all season, and it speaks to the mindset of this team, especially when something kind of dramatic gets thrown out there, that, hey, this is a team that doesn't like Boston, doesn't like playing Boston. Well, they like playing Boston. They don't like Boston. They like beating Boston. And especially when all that came out earlier in the day, I think that lit a fire under them. And if there's anybody that can make you want to run through a brick wall, it's somebody that very well could Kool-Aid man himself through a brick wall, is Rod Brindamore.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't know what he's done to this team, but he's kind of, I'll go back to I'll reference the first period. That was probably the most, like you said, the most complete first period that they've played probably this entire season and maybe the past couple seasons, just depending on some of the games. And I think that had a large part to do with, we want to beat Boston, something that we cannot seem to do in the playoffs, but we 2-0 against them this year. I'll just say that. And then Rod Brindamore's mentality is just keep attacking, don't give up. And that's the style he's implementing the style of play that he had during his tenure as captain, during his tenure as the captain for the 06 Cup team, and pretty much everything else that he has instilled in him is a reflection of who he is as a player, and that's really starting to rub off on pretty much this entire team that should not be, let's be honest here, they should not be as good as they are with the pieces they have. They just happen to put together pieces that work extremely well together, and it's basically a team of 23 to 25 Rod Brindamore is the way I look at it.
And that's a lot of what the NHL is, right? We talk about it being the sport in which talent it's not as vital as it is in any other sport, to the success of a team. It's such a team-oriented sport, and we've seen that with teams over the years winning cups. Tampa Bay being the exception because they had all that talent. Chicago as well, but teams like Washington, teams like St. Louis, teams like LA, when they went back-to-back. LA didn't go back-to-back because they had the most talented guys in the world. LA went back-to-back because they believed in each other, they had each other's backs, and they went out there and they pieced together a winning lineup and a winning formula. Washington and St. Louis were the same way. They had good players. They didn't have, Connor McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl or anything like that. But this is a Carolina team, and I said this to somebody the other night. This is the first Carolina team I have supreme confidence in. I can say in quite a while that I don't really have reservations about when we get to playoff time about making a run because they have that number one goaltender. The piece that was missing was somebody that was a quote-unquote true number one. They had kind of a 1A and 1B. You didn't have that true number one. You didn't have the person that became a Jordan Bennington or became a Braden Holtby or became an Andrei Vasilevsky or became a Marc-Andre Fleury. You didn't have that guy that could stand on his head when needed and just carry your team to victory. Some nights you need that. Again, and I've said this, I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face. You don't go into a game wanting that, but especially when you have a team like Boston that scores at will, when you're scoring at will and Freddie's back there stopping everything but the kitchen sink, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are. And you're right. The one consistent piece that this team has been missing in previous years is the number one goaltender. And they've kind of built it under Tom Dundon and I guess Brindamore has been I think they've both been there for the same amount of time. But they built it in the draft. They started by taking Andrei Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho. Maybe a year or two off on Aho. And then they built the defense, which is one of the top, I'd say, 5 defensive units in the NHL. And then they finally found that missing piece of Frederik Andersen that he's just been a brick wall, for lack of a better term.
He's been exceptional.
Yeah, he's been great. And standing on his head, he had to do that. I mentioned this last week against Calgary a few weeks ago. He made 20 saves in the first period, only allowing 1 goal.
It's unheard of.
And
when you get that much rubber thrown at you in the first period, like, you got to be ready to go at 19:58, okay, at 2 seconds in. You got to be ready to go. And goalies, a lot of times will talk about, I like getting, bombarded and peppered that early. They say that. It gets me in the game. No, they don't enjoy that. But, and
can I add one more thing?
That's always been the missing piece, right?
Yeah, it always has. And one thing another missing piece hasn't been as prevalent, but the special teams that the Hurricanes have, especially on the penalty kill, prior to Boston scoring their only goal, actually, thinking about it, was 7-1 or 5-1 or something like that. Carolina had killed off 34 straight penalties. And that's not something that they have not had a penalty kill this talented in. I don't remember the last time it was this talented. So kudos to Rod Brindamore and his staff for getting this penalty kill up to the standard that it has been so far.
And if there's any team, any coach that can really bring up a penalty kill to a level of eliteness, it's Rod Brindamore. When we continue to look around the NHL very quickly here, when we look at the standings, I think it's still safe to say that Florida remains the state of hockey to this point. Panthers and Lightning are the top 2 teams in the NHL overall. They're the top two teams in their division, and they're in a division with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are for once playing elite hockey night in and night out, with the exception of the other night against the New York Rangers. But there's a lot of teams that we expected to be a lot better at this point that just simply are not. And I think we're going to see, especially as we approach the trade deadline, there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that have to be made for a Montreal, for an Islanders, for a Devils, who are at the bottom of their divisions and definitely did not expect to be. Arizona probably expected to be there and expected to sell. I don't think Seattle expected to be as bad as they are. Edmonton, with all the problems that they're having, we didn't expect them to be this bad. That's going to be a PO'd bunch of Oilers, especially when you have the Leon Draisaitl situation that we had with the presser the other day. I just want to say that was a Hockey Hall of Fame reporter that asked Leon Draisaitl why he's so, quote, pissy. Look, if I'm 2-10-2 in my last 14 games, and have lost in regulation in my last 6, I'm going to be pissed off, okay? You can't ask me stupid questions and be, why are you so pissy? How are you in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Number one, I have no idea who you are. Number two, why are you asking me if I'm pissy? Of course I'm pissed off. Losing sucks. And I'm the leading point getter in the NHL and Leon Draisaitl. Yeah, I expect to win. I'm pissed off. Yeah, I'm pissy. Get over it. And then his next question was, do you think it's good when you show frustration on the ice? Yeah, I guess. Think it's good when I, storm out of this press conference? There's a certain level of professionalism that has to be carried as an athlete. And you have to speak to your fan base more than anything else. But when you get asked a question as just downright absurd as, why are you so pissy? Or why are you being mean to me? Me. When you get asked a stupid, immature question like that, you have every right to go off. Let's get a break in after that. We'll talk a myriad of different things. Josh Scott will join us to give his thoughts on Ben Mcadoo as the hire of the Panthers offensive coordinator. We'll also give you a smidgen of an update as if there was one where the MLB lockout stands right after this.
You are listening to The Score with Brett Wiseman on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
The wait is over. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails is now open. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel. Open 7 days a week starting at 11 a.m. daily. Freshly made Southern cuisine with signature cocktails and lunch specials daily. The location for your next event with Simply Sonia's catering specials. Open now. Simply Sonia's Southern Cuisine and Cocktails. 3050 University Parkway inside the Best Western Plus Hotel in Winston-Salem.
This is Donald Ware, host of Box to Row. I'm giving you my NFL predictions and some NBA talk, plus a conversation with Buck Buchanan Award winner, Florida A&M linebacker Isaiah Land, right here on Box to Row.
From press box to press row with Donald Ware, Saturdays at 9 a.m. on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Blue Naples Pizzeria in Kernersville is now hiring. Come work for one of the best Italian restaurants in the Triad. Currently hiring dishwashers, cooks, front cashiers, and more. Great hours, great pay. Give them a call at 336-993-7707 or stop by and inquire at 1519 Union Cross Road in Kernersville. Start working this week. Blue Naples Pizza. Here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio, we ask the tough questions.
Hey, you got any left-handed footballs?
We're never afraid to tell you how we feel.
Oh, we look like the damn Bad News Bears.
We'll debate sports. We'll debate anything.
Man, you lying. You ain't never met Martin Luther King. Not the way out. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he did not.
No matter what, Tobacco Road Sports Radio has you covered.
I'm going to come right back at him. Soldier.
You're listening to Tobacco Road Sports Radio. One Stop Number 6, located at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville, serving fresh fried chicken and our famous taters 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's the holidays, and what better way to feed your parties and gatherings than One Stop Chicken? Get the whole thing. Feeds 8 people. 16 pieces of chicken, 30 taters, 8 rolls, and 8 sides of coleslaw or potato salad for only $34.79. Come see us at 2748 West Mountain Street in Kernersville. That's one stop, number 6. Welcome back to The Score with Brett Wiseman here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Back here on The Score with Brett Wiseman on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Brett Wiseman joined alongside Alex Wober, who's Seattle Kraken. He would like to remind us are 2-0 since introducing Davy Jones as their team dog, which is a fantastic team dog name, by the way. Every NHL team seems to be jumping on and following the Blues' footsteps because they had a dog that went viral on the ice when they were terrible. In the same season, they went on to win a Stanley Cup. So it's like, oh, God, we got to get a dog now. Seattle trying to do that from where St. Louis was in last place and came back to win a Stanley Cup in the same season. Anyways, I digress. Josh, Mr. Denny's, Applebee's, Max frequenteer, Ben Mcadoo. I love to make that joke. By the way, if no one has seen the South Park post-COVID special, they don't know what I'm talking about. Christian's over there laughing his tail off right now.
Like me, I don't know what you're talking about. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that. He's going to pull that, favored play sheet back out and have some fun with it. But I ask you this because you're probably the most knowledgeable person other than our producer, Desmond Johnson, that would have anything to say on this. Why not Pep Hamilton? Can you give me a legitimate reason? 2, why is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? This is a guy that's was head coach of the Giants for a few years, and that went, he rose to prominence under Mike McCarthy as the OC of the Green Bay Packers a few years ago. Worked with Aaron Rodgers. Make me think this is a good hire is I guess what I'm getting at, because I don't think that right now.
Well, I'll answer your first question about Pep Hamilton. I think plain and simple, he just didn't want the job. He was either, very content at where he was at Houston. I mean, considering the fact that, they went 4-12 this past season was, I think, unexpected to say the least, considering the amount of, or the lack of offensive talent they had on the side of the ball. No Deshaun Watson, a lot of, previous Texan players who had been dynamic over the years, such as DeAndre Hopkins, were gone. So I think, they were able to make something out of nothing, quote unquote, last season. So maybe he wants to continue to build something there. I don't know. But for the second question, I think if you look at the candidates that the Panthers looked at and interviewed, there weren't a lot of great options. Jay Gruden being one, Ben McAdoo another. They're just not only. Other than you look at offensive coordinators right now, such as Eric Bieniemy. He's not going to be available. He's playing for a great Kansas City Chiefs team that is probably going to be going to their 3rd straight Super Bowl in the postseason. Offensive coordinators like him, they're going to want to stay, or the head coaches on those teams are going to want to keep those type of offensive coordinators on the team. So from the start, once Joe Brady got fired, the Panthers were going into an offensive coordinator search that they weren't going to find, A-tier coordinators to find. So let's get that out of the way first. Second, Ben McAdoo apparently has been wanting to be on the Panthers staff for a couple of years now. Each of the past 2 years, he's interviewed for the quarterback coach position, and he didn't get it with the Panthers. And now he's going to be offensive coordinator. That information comes from Joe Person via Twitter, by the way. So McAdoo has had interest in coming back to the NFL, and specifically with the Panthers. Obviously, he and Matt Rule have that connection with Tom Coughlin, who was the longtime coach for the Giants. As you mentioned, he was, and McAdoo took over once Coughlin stepped down. I think this hire obviously isn't the best hire, but of the available candidates Matt Rule had to choose from, I think Ben McAdoo has the amount of experience that he wants. Clearly, Matt Rule made a strong emphasis that the Panthers needed NFL experience in that offensive coordinator room. Compared to Joe Brady, 15 years compared to less than 1 or less than 2 now is a lot more experience, to say the least, at the offensive coordinator position. So overall, I think this hire is a C, B minus at best for the Panthers. But again, McAdoo does bring that offensive coordinating experience. He did well under McCarthy, as you said, while he was at Green Bay. So I think there is some hope in that, but there isn't much. So if there are Panther fans out there that are expecting a complete turnaround this season, I wouldn't bet on it personally, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, and look, I like what you said, and that's very convincing to me, that of the available candidates, he was probably the best. Yeah, for obvious reasons, better than Jay Gruden, right? Do I think Pep Hamilton would have been the better hire? Yeah, but he simply didn't want to leave.
No.
When you've got a guy coming in that has wanted to be there in some capacity for a couple of years now, that's a plus. And it's not like Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay or Kellen Moore in Dallas is going to leave their job for the same job somewhere else. They're getting head coach interviews left and right for good reason, but they're not leaving Green Bay and Dallas to go to Carolina. Of
Right.
the available offensive coordinators, the ones that were already, in their positions were likely going to stay there. So if anything,
And rightfully so, right? I mean, your Green Bay Packers, legit Super Bowl contenders. The Dallas Cowboys, they've been the best they've been in many years. Up until this past Sunday, they looked like a threat to the NFC Championship. So if you're on a better team right now, I mean, it doesn't mean you can, when you go to a different team, you can help change the culture there. But if you're on a better team, obviously you're going to want to stay with that team. So, but yeah, again, there just weren't many options there for the Panthers to choose from between McAdoo, Gruden, and others that were available at the time.
Right. And, time will tell how well this works out. But one more thing I want to ask you about it. Do you think he's going to have any say in where things go draft-wise as far as the needs we know exist as far as O-line and probably quarterback?
I would hope he does. He has the experience to at least have an idea of where the Panthers need to go offensively, the direction they need to go. His time with the Giants, I mean, they got a lot of offensive line capital. They got a lot of draft picks for the offensive line, so maybe he can help bring that to the Panthers and help Matt Rule say, okay, hey, and fortunately he's got a lot of offensive line candidates to choose from. Akeem Ekwonu, Tyler Linderbaum, Charles Cross, Evan Neal. Most of those are either offensive tackles or centers and so forth, but there are a lot to choose from in this draft. I think they're going to come to an agreement that, offensive line will be the top priority for the Panthers this season. And as for quarterback, I don't know. I mean, again, I think even if you wanted to draft a QB in April, you need to get more capital. The Panthers only have one draft pick in the first 4 rounds. That's not good. So even if you want to get a quarterback, I think pick 6 is too high. You're going to need to trade down, get more draft capital before you can think about making that decision. So, and again, Sam Darnold is going to be on this team next season because he's going to be paid $18.5 million because the Panthers chose to pick up his 5th-year option, which was a mistake. I think they'll acknowledge it, but still. But again, going back to your original question, I think McAdoo deserves and should have some say in the direction that the Panthers go offensively and drafting in talent next April.
Very quickly here, let's give you what is not much of an update, but I guess is an update. We're about 2.5, 3 weeks away from when spring training would normally start for Major League Baseball. We're nowhere close to that beginning on time, and it won't. Major League Baseball and the Players Union are going to have just their second meeting, or I believe they're having it as we speak right now. It's the first in-person meeting they've had since the lockout was initiated. Still a lot of the same issues that stand in the way that James Wilson and I talked about a few weeks ago here on the show before the turn of the new year. But today, MLB Players Association is expected to give their counter proposal to Major League Baseball. We'll see what the owners think of that. But as far as spring training starting on time, I predicted months ago that wouldn't happen. I still think the way this is shaken out, I think a March spring training and a mid to late April opening day as opposed to a start of April opening day is probably what we're going to see happen here going forward. Josh, thank you so much for hopping on really quickly. We really appreciate you bringing your thoughts to us this afternoon. Christian Emery, thank you. Alex Wober, thank you. Steve Wiseman, thank you. Michael Davis, thank you. Desmond Johnson, thank you. Thank you all for listening, watching, however you get the show. We appreciate you tuning in. See you next week.